Hi, I'm Gary White for Central Kentucky Television. I'm at the Marion County Extension Office. I'm here with Lizzie, who is the Family Consumer Science Agent, right?
Yes.
Very good. And we're going to be doing some cooking. I guess this is kind of cooking. We're going to be making some food anyway,
yes.
right? It's going to be a very burry salsa. Right?
Yes,
okay.
it is. And this is a Kentucky Proud plated up recipe, and those are developed through the Kentucky Proud program with the University of Kentucky.
Like your shirt.
Exactly. And
apron, I guess.
My apron. And they started doing these to kind of promote the Kentucky Proud produce that we have. So each recipe features something that you could buy locally. And it's kind of encouraged to support your local farmers.
Fantastic. And this one, I know you could get a lot of this local because it's all going to be fruits, right?
Exactly.
Right? A lot of good fruits too, it looks like.
Lots of fruits. We have apples, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries as our main ingredients, just with some sugar, brown sugar, and then strawberry preserves. So it's simple enough.
Very simple. How long does it take?
Not that 15, 20 minutes,
cool.
depending on, washing, peeling.
Right. Yes, when we got here, I was getting set up, and Lizzie was peeling the apples, so that was kind of a tedious little job there, but after that's done, it's all good, right?
Exactly. It's a lot easier once you get those out of the way.
Exactly. Okay, so what's our first step in making our very burry salsa?
Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get our raspberries, and you're going to want to have those, and you're going to get a cup of them.
Okay.
And you're just having those just so it's smaller pieces once you actually get it on whatever you're going to serve it with.
Now, I was saying to you beforehand, because the preserves weren't out here, I was like, well, there's no liquid, and you say you add the preserves, but also a lot of the liquid element will come from the juices within the fruits themselves, right?
And that's one thing with this, you'll refrigerate it for at least 30 minutes before you serve it, just so it does have time to chill and those juices can start flowing through there.
Okay. So how many people would this particular recipe serve?
This one yields 32 2-ounce servings, so it's one of those, if you had it in a bowl or if somebody dipped it out, when you're doing salsa or a dip, usually people don't tend to take a whole lot because you eat more cracker or chip, than whatever you're putting on there, so it goes a long way.
And for those who attended the Farm Family Field Day here with the Extension Office, you made a variation on this for that too, correct?
Yes, I made this recipe there. And a couple of people have tried it since then and liked it, so it is consumer approved.
Good. Now, you're making a cup of the raspberries, and obviously it's going to be a salsa, so that's always something that you use to dip and eat with. And I think we have some crackers here today, but what I found pretty interesting was you were telling me a way to make some
pita chips.
Yes, pita chips, right, thank you.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that pitas were tortilla shells baked, correct?
Yes. As I was telling Gary, whenever we did this at Farm Field Day, I had both graham crackers, that's what's recommended to serve it with, but then I also had pita chips that I had purchased just for time constraints there. I didn't do those homemade just because we were out on a farm and so I didn't have an oven or anything. But you can make those. It's a lot cheaper to make them actually. And what I do whenever I make them at home is just buy whatever kind of off-brand tortillas that they have, because usually you can buy those for a little over $1 for a pack of 10. And then I just melt a little bit of butter on there, just enough to lightly coat it, so you can stick some cinnamon sugar on there. And you also don't have to have a whole lot of cinnamon sugar either, just enough to give it, a taste on there. And you bake those in the oven for a few minutes and they come out, they're done. But you do want to make sure that you cut those beforehand, because once they go in there, they're going to break apart if you try to cut them afterwards.
Right. Okay. And you were saying you can make one tortilla shell and cut into like 8, so you're actually getting about 80 chips when you're done. So that can be a lot less expensive than what you can buy some of the different.
And another reason it's more expensive is just because most people already have the butter and cinnamon and sugar at their house, so those aren't ingredients that you have to go out and purchase.
Right.
And now we're going to cut up a cup of blackberries.
Okay. Well, they're nice blackberries. I love blackberries.
Yes. And I've washed all of this beforehand. Something that you definitely want to make sure you do anytime you get produce from the farmer's market or at the grocery store, or even at home, wash it off definitely before
Right.
you eat it.
And the farmers markets in all the counties that we serve, they're all open now in Marion County as well as Washington County and Nelson County at different times. And several of these are in season, is that true?
The strawberries are, I think, past their like prime season, but you could probably still get those around. I actually, since we're doing this today, the farmers market's not open today, so I purchased this from a grocery store. But
Well, I know just yesterday I was talking to somebody and they had a big jug of wild blackberries that they had picked, so.
and you could use wild blackberries. These are domesticated. Like I said, I got them from the grocery store, but
They're nice and big.
Yes, definitely. If you have wild blackberries, you could use those.
A nice little flavor to it.
And of course, there is going to be a difference in the flavor between the domesticated and the wild.
Right. And also with the ones that you get at the farmers markets, and they're nice and fresh and
Exactly.
juicy and stuff, so that'll be really nice.
It's produce is always better whenever you get it either, when you get it at the farmer's market, it's either picked that morning or the day before, so it's a lot fresher than what you get at the grocery store that's been on a truck
Right.
sitting in the grocery for a while.
And you're helping locals, that's good.
Exactly. Putting money back into.
So now, so far we have a cup of our blackberries and we have a cup of our raspberries.
Yes, and we are going to now put in a cup of strawberries.
Okay.
I'm just going to dice those.
So it's pretty simple, a cup. Sounds
Exactly,
like.
it is.
Now, what's your favorite fruit that we have here so far?
Out of what we have here, I would definitely have to say strawberries is what I like the most. But I didn't used to be a really big raspberry or blueberry fan, but they're growing on me. It's one of those things that whenever you're a kid you don't like, but your taste buds definitely change as you get older.
That's true. I've always liked strawberries. And when I was younger, we used to have a farm, or I used to have a garden in the backyard, and we'd have strawberries. I didn't enjoy having to go out there and weed because I hate weeding, but I would enjoy eating the strawberries.
We have strawberries in my garden at home, so they're good. And I've always liked blackberries just because I grew up on a farm, so we have those wild blackberries growing around everywhere.
That's great. A couple years ago, we had a program where a lady in Springfield made some blackberry jam. She was she's from England, so we did like a formal tea kind of presentation that they do, and so she made this cream and the blackberry jam. It was really, really good. And that was the first time I really had blackberries. I hadn't had blackberries very much, and I love them now, so they're enjoyable. And blueberries, they are a power food.
Yes. And that is one thing that's good about this is that it is berries, and berries are good for you because they're full of antioxidants. So they're definitely something that you want to have in your diet.
Yes.
One thing I do want to say about these, if you're purchasing these from the farmer's market, you don't have to worry about it as much because you can see more what you're buying. But when you're purchasing the blackberries, raspberries, or strawberries at the grocery store and they're in those cartons, you definitely want to be careful whenever you are purchasing those to look at the package because a lot of the times those are either been sitting there for a while and they're mushy or they've got mold on the bottom of them. So that's definitely something you want to be precautious about whenever you are purchasing those because you don't want to waste your money on something that's not the best quality.
And if you're not getting enough to make what you're looking for, too.
Exactly.
And cleaning it is essential, too, because like you were saying, some of them could have that mold or stuff on there, so you want to make sure that you do clean them when you get home. Is there a special kind of way? Is it just regular water the best way? How would you?
Water's fine. Just make sure that you mix them around in the water so you can get it all covered and all washed off. So then we've got our cup of strawberries.
Okay.
Those are diced. And for our blueberries, you're just going to stick those in whole, so we just need a cup of those.
Okay. So the easy one.
Exactly. They're really easy.
I could even do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, this would be a good thing to make with your kids because it is so easy to put together. Give them something to do in the summer while they're home from school.
Exactly. Okay. So we've had a cup of everything so far.
Yes, and now we're going to do our apples, and it's 4 cups of apples. Those are your base ingredient.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Now, does it matter what particular kind of apple or just whatever your favorite?
I was going to say, with this recipe, it just says apples. It doesn't say what kind. And that is one thing with this particular recipe. that I guess you could either not like or like because it lets you have some variation on what you want to do. I just used some red apples, and the reason I did that is because green apples are more tart, like everyone knows, and I knew that we were already going to have some tartness from the berries in there, so I didn't want to add that extra. The red apples will be sweeter, so that's why I picked those instead.
Okay.
It kind of just depends on your preference. If you like tart food, then you might want to put a green apple or Granny Smith apple in here.
Okay, good. Now, the Extension Office just recently hosted the Marion County Arts and Humanities Council's art camp, and you had cooking going on here as well, you were saying, right?
We did.
And this year you're kind of doing a heritage cooking. You did a lot of things that people used to do, I guess, right?
Used to do, exactly. A lot of things that the kids were not familiar with.
Yes, and one of the things, but you also did them in a more simplified way so that people could do it at home, right?
Yes.
Like, for instance, ice cream. Well, one thing you said was butter. That's how it kind of started. And both the butter and the ice cream, usually you churn them.
Yes.
But you were saying that you did the ice cream and you did the butter in a bag.
Yes, we did the ice cream in a bag. That's something else that we did at Farm Field Day this year that the kids really liked. It's very simple ingredients. You've got your milk, your sugar, your vanilla, and your cream, and you put all of that in a bag, a quart-size bag. And then you get rock salt and your ice, and you stick that in a gallon bag, and you just stick the little bag in the big bag, and you shake it as hard as you can until you get the ice cream. So it's a fun activity for the kids as well.
Wow, so that's kind of interesting. And I guess you can add different flavors too, like the strawberries or whatever, right?
Yes, and that is one of the things on the recipe. Once you get done and you make the ice cream, you can add whatever kind of fruit you want to it if you choose to do that.
Okay. Strawberry ice cream used to be the only ice cream I'd eat. Kind of broadened as I got older, but that used to be one of them.
I love homemade peach ice cream, so if I was making
wow.
it, I'd want to put peaches in it.
That'd be good too. We used to have an ice cream maker when I was a child, and they'd make chocolate and strawberry and banana and stuff like that. Strawberry banana is actually a good combination. I would like that too when I was younger. We didn't do much with the peach, but we had a grape barber in the back too, so my mom would make grape jelly every year, so we had to pick them too. I wasn't a fan of having to pick them either. But you got to do what you got to do, right?
Exactly. It's worth it whenever you get to eat it.
Now, I noticed you have different sizes of the apples. I guess the size doesn't matter. It's just whatever you can find.
No. We actually had used some apples for a program that we had here, so there was a couple left in the refrigerator, and I wanted to use those since they were in there instead of letting those go to waste, but I knew that wasn't going to be enough. And so instead of just buying a whole bag, because I knew those would be left over, I used the extra that we had, and I just purchased a single apple from the grocery store because I had already had those. So if you do have them and you don't have enough and you're just wanting an apple for this particular recipe, that'd be a good way to do it because that way you don't have to purchase a whole bag that you may not use.
And we were saying, you make different kinds. If you're not a particular fan of the blueberry or the blackberry or strawberry or raspberry, whatever one doesn't kind of make you as happy, you can kind of mix in some other ones too. You're even saying that you've made this with different melons, right?
I actually have made one before that had kiwi in it, which was definitely more tart than this one was, but still delicious.
Yeah, so you can kind of mix it up if you have some different favorite fruits they can do. And again, it's been a cup of the blueberries, a cup of the raspberries, a cup of the blackberries, a cup of the strawberries, and now we're going to have 4 cups of the apples.
And working on our 3rd cup now, so they're about all in there.
And with the apples, when I first got here, you were waiting to kind of peel them because sometimes apples can turn a little color, right? Turn a little brown. Doesn't mean that they're bad, it just means that the peel's been off them. Yeah. So there are some kind of techniques that sometimes people use in order to prevent that. Is that right?
Yes, you can try to put some lemon juice on there, and that'll help with the discoloration of those. If I was going to do that, I would still use the apples fairly quickly because even though that does delay it, they still will brown. And
mixing them in with all these other fruits
I was going to say, it won't matter with this one. I mean, I still wouldn't want them to be brown, but you don't have to worry about it having any discoloring because the berries will stain the apples.
Exactly. They're going to turn blue and red anyway.
They're going to be a nice
or black or whatever
shade of probably a blue or purple.
Yeah,
from
purple.
All of those.
I'll mix them all up. So the one other ingredient that we're going to be adding to it is going to be our preserves, correct?
Yes, we're going to mix the preserves with a little bit of sugar and brown sugar to make a syrup to go over it.
Right. And I was asking Lizzie before we got started, what's the difference between preserves and jam, or between jam and jelly and stuff of that nature? And you're kind of saying there's some little difference among the three, right?
It's a fine line, pretty much, between the three of them. It basically just depends on what kind of texture you want, is kind of what I think it boils down to with whatever you choose. And like I told you, there's some fruits that I prefer one way and some I prefer another.
Right.
It just depends on what it is and what kind of texture I like. With strawberries, I like to have those more in pieces. I don't want a jelly of strawberries just because I like that. So I prefer jam that way. But of course, like I was telling you, typically if I'm going to eat jelly, I get grape jelly because that's not something I'd want to have chunks of whenever I'm eating it.
Exactly.
It just kind of depends.
Yeah. You don't hear too much jelly jam. You know, or excuse me, not jelly, grape jam. You know, it has little things in there. And the blackberries are good as a jam because you get those little seeds in there and stuff, which is nice. Gives it a little different texture for it.
And that's something that a lot of people will make, is homemade blackberry jam and strawberry jam.
So again, we're making very, very salsa, and it is from the Plate to Table?
Plated Up.
Plated Up with the University of Kentucky. The extension office is here, and you will have the opportunity to get a copy of that recipe if you contact your extension office in your county too, right? Because they all have different copies of it?
Yes, they all will have these, and if your office for some reason doesn't have it, or if you won't make it to the office, you can actually find these online at www.kyproud.com.
Okay, great.
So they're on the Kentucky Proud webpage.
Fantastic. So it's Kentucky Proud. We're using all these Kentucky ingredients, and the best way to do it is to go to your farmer's market and find them there, because you can find most everything you need there too. Even some preservatives.
Yes, a lot of them do have their homemade and canned goods. Like I said, with the apples, it wasn't specific on what kind. It also is not specific on what kind of preserves to use.
Okay.
I purchased strawberry just for the same reason as the red apples. I didn't want to get apricot or anything that was going to have any kind of tart flavor to it.
Okay.
I wanted a sweeter taste, so I purchased strawberry. And I also got sugar-free. And the reason I did that is because the fruit's going to have enough natural sugar in it, and with the added sugar and brown sugar, which there's not going to be a lot of sugar and brown sugar, but with the natural sugars in the fruit, you don't need any added.
Great. Okay.
And we are going to use a tablespoon of that. And get it to come off. And I have a half a tablespoon, that's why I'm doing it twice.
Okay. So I have 1 tablespoon of whatever the preserves you choose.
Exactly.
Preservatives of your choice.
Of your choice.
As long as it's sugar-free, right?
Well, you wouldn't have to
Preferably.
use sugar-free. That was just, I think there's enough sugar in it without having the extra. And then you're going to use a half a teaspoon of sugar and a half a teaspoon of brown sugar. So see, there's not a lot, but there's definitely enough sugar to go around for the whole recipe, I think.
Yeah. And this is something too that a child could help with if you decide to do it with your family. You know, whisking is fun.
It is fun, even though there's not a lot in here. And it doesn't look like a whole lot. As you can see, there's not a whole lot in the bowl, but it's enough to cover.
That's great. And we said that this is something that says like 32 little dippings or whatever, right? 32 ounce serving. Okay. And just make sure you have your chips or crackers or whatever you want to use with it, so you can taste it afterwards. But we are going to let it sit for about a half hour,
right? You
right?
do want to let it sit after you do it.
Okay.
And then you're just going to mix that all in together. Yeah, this is one of those things where it's not going to be bad if you go ahead and eat it beforehand, if you can't wait to get a taste. But it's definitely going to be better after it sits for a little bit.
Yeah, well, it looks good.
I was going to say, as you can see the difference, the apples are already starting to turn color.
Yeah.
Some of that juice is already starting to come out.
Exactly. Taking a nice red color again. So again, we had a cup of each of our first 4 fruits.
Cup of each of the berries, and then 4 cups of the apples.
Okay. And then we add the preservatives in with the sugar and the brown sugar, and it kind of does make a little sauce there. And see, it doesn't look like that much, but actually it's covering really nicely.
You don't need a whole lot. And then once it sits, it'll cover even more because all those juices will come out. And I made this, like I said, at Farm Field Day, and that had been before 4th of July. So I told them this would be a great 4th of July dish to make because
That's
it's
true.
red, white, and blue. But
Exactly.
it's just festive for any time during the summer, I think, because it looks pretty.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. The red, white, and blue in there. Because you can still tell they're apples.
Yes.
And it's the apples of your choice, whatever you choose.
So then we have that all mixed up, and that's all done. And like I said, have some graham crackers here that you could serve it with. These are just plain. You could, if you wanted to go the more unhealthy route, get the cinnamon sugar ones, I suppose. But it is good because there is, like I said, the natural sugar in here. It's sweet enough that you can use the plain ones and they taste fine.
Great.
Or you could use the pita chips, whichever one that you prefer.
Right, we got an extra tip on how to make those pita chips from Lizzie. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So again, this was the Very Berry Salsa, and you can get that recipe online at
www.kyproud.com or at your local extension office.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Appreciate it. This has been Gary White at the Marion County Extension Office.